All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be getting into the week 3 preview here for you guys, giving you guys a first look build, some of my favorite plays currently, as well as some of the best GPP plays that you can be on. So I do want to start out at the running back position because we have about 8 that are going to be in play this week right now. As it's obviously there's always a little bit more than that, but 8 that I'm truly looking at that I wanted to touch on. The first one's going to be simple. Jordan Mason, I think we just continue to go back to the well with him. I don't really get the pricing, honestly. The pricing on him is a little bit strange, especially considering the matchup against the Rams. You look at the Rams, they're going to be without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Okay, they are extremely banged up. And so with that, you kind of expect the Niners to be playing with the lead in this game. Now, the Niners are banged up as well. They could potentially be without Deebo Samuel, who's nursing an injury as well. He is listed as doubtful, so that's how I'm approaching this slate, and that'll lead to some other plays that we're going to be on as well. But it's also the simple fact that Deebo's out that I also like Jordan Mason. Deebo Samuel, in some aspects, was taking away work from Jordan Mason, whether it be end arounds or just quick hitters to Deebo Samuel. That's actually that might hurt the offense a little bit, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, that's going to lead to a higher, it's tough to get higher, but a higher floor for Jordan Mason. I know he's gotten 21 opportunities, 29 opportunities, like that's harder to get, but in the traditional sense of like looking at it at running back, he's going to have a higher floor. And so at 6.2, we're getting another workhorse running back in a good spot, a spot that we shouldn't be passing up on. From there, I do think I want to go to another running back in that same game, Kyan Williams. So I already mentioned that Puka Nacua is going to be out, and also Cooper Kupp is going to be out. That's going to lead to Kyan Williams getting a lot of work in the passing game. We saw that happen in parts last year with Cooper Kupp out. And when Cooper Kupp came back, we actually saw Kyan Williams work in the passing game go down. It went from having design plays to him to mostly just what we saw in week 1, which was just these like random dump offs from Matthew Stafford, broken play type of stuff. I think we're going to see more design pass attempts go to Kyan Williams. And we are going to get a workhorse running back, a guy that's going to play around 90% of the snaps at kind of a cheap price tag, relatively speaking, for that workload and for probably the floor that he has. Like we probably should be locking in around 15 fantasy points for him. So I do really like Kyan Williams as well, but at the same time, we got another running back right there as well at that same price tag, Devon Achane. Achane is another one that's kind of in a weird spot. Okay, just given some injuries. Mostert is probably going to be out. We'll have to see kind of what the news is on that. Jeff Wilson could be out as well. Like we need to get some clarity on that. If they are both out, I think we're going to see Devon Achane get around 60% of the work. The issue that we have with Devon Achane is the fact that Tua is going to be out. That does probably drastically hurt the offense. At the same time, I just saw the Patriots running backs really have good games against the Seattle Seahawks defense. And so I do believe that Devon Achane could also have a good game. I'm actually expecting that as well. So if we get news that Mostert and Wilson are going to be out, I think we're just looking at Achane. Achane's been using the passing game a bunch, 7 targets in both games and 7 receptions in both games. Really, my one concern with Achane would be his actual passing game usage actually taking a drop with Skylar Thompson in at quarterback, but also if Mostert and also Jeff Wilson are out, Achane might be forced to play as a more traditional running back. That's a slight concern, but overall, I'm not too concerned about that. So for now, I'm putting him into the build, but I want to talk about some other running back spots that we have as well. So Tony Pollard probably becomes a lock. I hate saying the lock word, but probably becomes a player that we are just getting to a lot if Tyjae Spears is out. Tyjae Spears is nursing an ankle injury that led to Tony Pollard getting 68% of the snaps. I would say Pollard looked better than Spears last week, and maybe that's why. Spears really hadn't looked like himself last week, and it was, to me, visibly watching it, I did think, I'm like, something is probably wrong with Spears, to the point where I ended up searching on Twitter, saw that he had an ankle injury, and then I saw the snaps, I'm like 68%. That makes perfect sense. And so if we are looking at Tony Pollard potentially getting a workhorse workload, which really to me, that's anything over 70% these days, that's huge. Okay, obviously he had a lot of opportunities last week and 2 weeks ago. So 20 opportunities over the past 2 games. That's huge. Going against the Green Bay Packers defense, who I don't really get the game plan by the Colts last week. That was crazy. Jonathan Taylor should have had 30 touches in that game. That was crazy. Tony Pollard should be able to tear up this Packers defense that has gone beat up by Jonathan Taylor and also Saquon Barkley. Like, that should just be a thing that we're targeting. And so I'm going to do that with Tony Pollard for now. If Tyjae Spears is active and definitely good to go, maybe we rethink that. Okay, if we get any news that Tony Pollard is going to be limited or potentially on a pitch count, we are happy to get to Tony Pollard. I do want to point out, guys, that with that Tennessee Titans situation, I do still think they're going to be riding the hot hand. I think they weren't lying when they said that to us this offseason. It's just the fact of the matter that Tony Pollard has been the hot hand. He took a touchdown, a big play touchdown in week 1, and then he got the work after that. Then last week I mentioned Tyjae Spears just didn't look that good. Tony Pollard did look good. So the chances are that it will be Tony Pollard having the hot hand regardless. And then, yeah, still looking at Josh Jacobs as a play as well, going against that Titans defense, which I think the Titans defense is good, but you look at that Titans offense, it has been poor, which should lead to some touches for Josh Jacobs. Obviously, Josh Jacobs was the focal point of the Packers offense last week, as I expected. He went off, had a great game, didn't get any work in the passing game, which was a little bit shocking. And because of that, and because he fumbled on the 1 yard line, only 17 points. So he was one of the players I was pretty high on last week, given his projected workload. And I think he's going to be a great play again this week. There's also the potential opportunity that Jordan Love will be active, which would only help Josh Jacobs as a play. So I think he's going to be a phenomenal option for us this week. I'm happy to play him, especially at that price tag. And then let's get into 3 other running back situations. Let's talk about Tampa. So Rachaad White, currently nursing an injury. And this was the one running back play other than Zamir White, I warned you guys a bunch, I felt like, that it's probably going to be him and Madison splitting a workload, that the ADP was insane, that difference between those two. Anyways, White he's not overly talented. He's a very situational back in terms of fantasy football production. Situation's been great for him, thus he's been a productive running back for fantasy football purposes. He is replaceable. And so if he is banged up or out, I think we can expect that exact same production to come out of Bucky Irvin, who Bucky Irvin has looked good every single week we have saw him. And obviously that includes the preseason. I would argue Bucky Irvin has looked better on film than Rachaad White has. But if White is out, that's going to be huge, especially against Denver, who is just a garbage offense. Bo Nix is struggling. And so Bucky Irvin should really be able to go off in this game. He probably would become a core play for me if White is out. Then another spot that wasn't too shocking to me was the work that Diont Foreman got last week, basically splitting the reps with Jerome Ford. We actually saw Pierre Strong get some work in there as well. With Foreman, he is someone that he's the Derrick Henry in the offense, okay? Like you look at Baltimore, you look at Tennessee last year as well. Whenever a team with Derrick Henry has been in the lead, he is going to get a little bit more work if they're playing with the lead, right? He is that. I mean, it's the exact same thing with Diont Foreman. If they want to grind the clock out, they're going to do that with Diont Foreman, who's just a hard-nosed runner. They're not going to do that with Jerome Ford. That was something I touched on a little bit last week. I forget in which video. And the reason I bring that up is because they are going against the Giants, a team that has been beat up via the run game. And he could potentially get this same usage. 14 rush attempts, 1 target. Maybe he scores a touchdown this game. So I think there is a little bit of GPP upside there with him at such a cheap price tag. Like that's where he becomes worth the flyer, is that pricing. And I think it's worth noting the RB1 for Dallas last week was Rico Dowdle, which kind of makes me mad compared to week 1. The offense did look slightly more explosive with him on the field. I think he looked slightly better than Zeke for what it's worth. Deuce Vaughn got mixed in a lot. We're probably not looking at any of them, but we're getting RB1-ish at below 5K. I think that's worth mentioning. All right, so now let's jump into the receivers. So obviously if Deebo Samuel's going to be out, we're going to be looking at Jawan Jennings. It's pretty much as simple as that. Such a cheap price tag, especially in a good matchup going against that LA Rams defense that probably will be on the field a decent amount. The only issue that I have with this is, playing Jordan Mason and Jawan Jennings in a lineup together in an offense that is not going to have as much firepower. So the points might not be as high for them. I know he's going to be involved. And at this point in the week, I am just simply putting him into my builds. But to me, it wouldn't be shocking to see any of these other 3 really step up and be focal points in this offense in terms of replacing kind of the Deebo Samuel role. Ronnie Bell did that for 1 game last year, sorry. Cowing is someone that they sort of like. If you guys watched Brendan Covey, I think it's Covey, on Monday night, that could be Cowing where he gets used that way. And obviously Brandon Ayuk is someone we're probably looking at as well. So it's really deciding, do we want to pay up for Brandon Ayuk, which we can do. I don't want to say I'm happy to do that, but I'm comfortable doing that. But for now, I'd rather go with Jawan Jennings, who's at a cheaper price tag, who will also see an increase in his usage. Then another play that I think we're going to be on a bunch is going to be receiver Devonte Smith. So he was the player that I was going on my way to play as a captain's pick along with Darnell Mooney on Monday night. Ended up working out for both of them. I was slightly worried that Smith might not see as much of a spike in his production because he'd be taking over more as the outside receiver, maybe abandoning some of those slot snaps that were valuable to me. Turns out it didn't matter. He played Oh, I mean, play as much as we'd want. Had 10 targets, had a touchdown. I mean, he looked good. 7 receptions in that game. Look at this game with the Saints. This could actually end up being a game that's going to be extremely high scoring. The Saints offense has been great. The Dallas game last week probably should have been a shootout. The Dallas offense ended up settling for some field goals instead, whereas the Saints just kept scoring. And so I actually really love the fact that we were getting Devonte Smith at 6.9. I mentioned a bunch that I don't really think there's a huge difference in terms of the talent between A.J. Brown and Devonte Smith, that typically speaking, we should just play the lower price player. But if one of them's out, let's just go crazy with that other receiver. I know they're 2 different receivers. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Obviously, A.J. Brown, more of a physical type receiver. Devonte Smith, more of a kind of route runner, but they're both so good. And so we get Devonte Smith again with A.J. Brown on. I'm more than happy to make this click. Now, given the value that we have in the slate, it's going to be super easy to fit CeeDee Lamb into our builds. Maybe the matchup with Baltimore isn't exactly something that we love, but I'm happy to go there. Some other spots that I want to call out. DJ Moore, I just love the targets that he's getting, 10 and 8. Okay, if we get Kyan Allen out again, I think we're probably just looking at DJ Moore again. He is more of a shoulder shrug play, one of those plays where if you end up on him, you're kind of happy to. A play that I do like, just naturally, I feel like he's due to have a good game. Chris Olave, he's at a cheap price tag. The Saints have been blowing out teams the first 2 weeks, and the ball just hasn't come his way because, well, they've been extremely efficient running the football with Alvin Kamara. Rashid Shaheed has had a couple of big plays. They haven't needed Chris Olave to be productive, so he hasn't been. At the same time, let's say it is a shootout again, or let's say the Saints are scoring again. Those other players are now going to demand more attention. So that's going to mean maybe a little bit less attention to Chris Olave. Thus, I think he's just naturally, when someone says like he's due for a big game, it's all those other talking points that I just mentioned as to why people would naturally think, oh, he's due, come with that take. They just haven't fully thought out that thought. That's the fully thought out thought. And so that's why I think Chris Olave is a great play this week. GPP-wise, great play. Game stack play, great play. So I'm happy to play him. At the same time, we do have some cheaper plays that I'm also going to be happy to get to. So we got news that Andy Dalton's going to be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, which is going to be huge. Now, will it be huge for Deontay Johnson or Adam Thielen or both? Maybe. Deontay Johnson's actually a little bit cheaper. Thus, I think he's going to be the one I want to go with. I love the talent of Deontay Johnson. He's someone that can get open a bunch. He's more of a timing type of receiver. And so when you got a quarterback that is just holding on to the ball too long, he's not going to be productive. Andy Dalton is a veteran. He's going to know how to run an NFL offense. He's going to know to get the football to Deontay Johnson and Thielen into their hands. And the Raiders aren't an elite defense, okay? So Deontay Johnson at this cheap price tag, we probably are going to be looking at around 8 targets at this cheap price tag. Like this should be 2x, lock it in, feel good about it. Now, with the Rams being super banged up, I do want to be getting to one of the Rams receivers. I think the receiver I'm going to be going on my way to target is going to be Jordan Winnington. Okay, now I kind of mentioned at the start of the season that I thought there was 2 receivers that had a great chance. I shouldn't say great, but a good chance to be this year's Puka Nacua. Now, obviously, not expecting a top 5 receiver production, but a guy that's being currently undrafted that comes out of nowhere that is fantasy relevant. Jordan Winnington was one of those, and Devon Valet was one of those. Strangely enough, guys, I already got to start out of Devon Valet in some best ball drafts. That's my last pick in best ball drafts, scoring like 10 points in week 1. I mean, it's pretty crazy. So I would already take that as a win, honestly. But Winnington, I expect him to get a lot of work. A lot of people are going to say it's probably going to be Tyler Johnson or Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson has proven that he's not a number 1 or number 2 receiver in the league. Now, can Sean McVay scheme that for a week or 2? Yes. I just don't see that happening. And if you watch the preseason, you saw Winnington look like Puka Nacua 2.0. I think it just comes down to maybe he doesn't know the playbook as well or something like that. He might not have Sean McVay's trust, but he's going to be forced to play him. And if we're getting forced into, let's say, 60% snaps for Winnington, which I think we're going to get, then I absolutely love him because, again, he's going to be used, I think, the same way as Puka Nacua. Tyler Johnson might have a chance to be used like Cooper Kupp. I actually think the natural replacement for Cooper Kupp is Tutu Atwell more so. It's definitely interesting. But the one I want to gamble on, because I feel like he has a massive ceiling in terms of like Puka Nacua production, 6 catches, 60 yards type stuff, is Winnington. I hate the price tag. I really thought he was going to come in as a sneaky play. At the same time, this is going to leave his ownership to be extremely low. I really value him as a GPP flyer. Then I do think it's worth mentioning Britton Covey obviously had a good game on Monday night. They tried to get in the ball in the goal line as well. I think it was like 2 receptions inside the 10, obviously inside the red zone. A little bit annoyed at the reporting with Johnny Wilson because Covey would have been someone I would have been on a little bit Monday night wise, especially more if Wilson was out in that game. Covey played a decent amount, got a decent amount of snaps. If Wilson's going to be limited again, I'm happy to get there. But we might not have to because the Minnesota Vikings are going to potentially be providing us with a lot of value. So guys, the Justin Jefferson banged up. He could potentially sit in this game. He says he's feeling good, so take that for what it's worth. Jordan Addison, questionable as well. If one of those two sit or if they both sit, I think we are looking at Jalen Nailor as an option. He's been someone that has been on my value list the first 2 weeks as someone to monitor more in week 1, and then in week 2, a good value play. If he's going to be the receiver number 1 for this offense, he should be force-fed some targets, more so than 4. Now, he scored twice. Obviously, that's due to regress. That is my concern, but this game might potentially be high scoring going against Houston. So I don't mind getting, a receiver number 1 at 4.4. That's great. And then if those two sit, Brandon Powell does become a decent value play for you as well. Would play about 70 to 80% of the snaps. It could be someone that we get a cheap 3x out of, honestly, at that cheap price tag. And then from there, let's jump on into the tight ends, and we're actually going to stick with the tight end position. Johnny Munn got 70% of the snaps last week. Wasn't overly productive, but because of that, he's still priced pretty cheap. 3.1, again, hasn't been that productive. That's fine. Again, if Jefferson's out, they're going to need Munn to be productive, and we could easily see that happening. 3.1, that's a cheap price tag for him. Another player that I want to call your attention to is Foster Moreau, playing 70% of the snaps last week. Had a touchdown that was called back. Didn't really change the play. I know that was his only thing there. Like, he didn't have any stats, but again, they didn't need him to. And so I love him as a play at 2.6. I don't really get that pricing already. Again, had a touchdown called back. But also, when a game's a blowout, you're not going to throw the football that much. So this is more a bet on Philly showing up. And if they do, that's just a great play for him. And on top of that, guys, Taysom Hill has the potential to sit. I know Hill hasn't been playing tight end, really. He's been more of a running back. But that just takes another offensive weapon out. And if you're taking another offensive weapon out, that kind of limits the Saints' unique playbook that they've had. Thus, they might resort to a more traditional playbook. Thus, a tight end might be a little bit more useful. But also, that's a cheap way to get an offense that has looked great. And then the easy play is just George Kittle at 5.7. Obviously went off, had a massive game last week. He's been productive. Honestly, I'm a little bit shocked at the price. Now, I was a little bit shocked at the hype for George Kittle this fantasy football season. In best ball drafts, I was telling people to draft Kittle. He was going around later than like Kyle Pitts in some situations, which was strange. Heck, he was going 3 rounds later than Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta. That was a head scratcher to me. So I love getting Kittle late in best ball drafts as the tight end 1, as a certified stud tight end. And now we get him with Deebo Samuel. We know the offense is going to be funneled probably through him, honestly. And so I love getting to him. And again, there's so much value out there on the site that we can easily fit George Kittle into our builds. Now, value guys, I do want to call it Theo Johnson. Got 0 targets last week. Don't love that, but he did play a lot again. So someone I think that's worth calling out. And then quarterback-wise, I think is kind of ugly, honestly, on this slate. I'm probably going to pay up for Jackson or Hurts and just hope that they have a ceiling game because, Kyler Murray I'm happy to get to, but I don't really want to play Marvin Harrison. Trey McBride, I'm fine with. I'm kind of happy to play him, but more in GPPs. There's not really anyone I can stag with him. I don't mind going to Anthony Richardson, but the Bears defense has looked good. Dak Prescott going against Baltimore might worry me, and honestly, I'm just biased. Watching the film on the Cowboys was super annoying this week because all I heard was, here we go. And it was just, oh my God, super frustrating, guys. I had to mute it. I did. How is that a thing? I love listening to the commentary in games because you hear things that maybe wasn't reported, and I had to mute it because he's just super annoying with that. There needs to be some sort of AI that it changes this, here we go, into a random thing. That'd be great, actually. But some other quarterbacks that are in play, like Jared Goff, obviously we need him to throw. We need him to probably get that 300-yard bonus. Don't love that. Baker Mayfield has been great, but he's going against Denver. And the reason why I think that could be significant is maybe they're playing with the lead. Maybe Bucky Irving does have a good game. Is he really going to score a rushing touchdown? Again, if you take that away, he still scores 17 points, but I think he's priced correctly. Brock Purdy, I would love to be on more. And if I'm playing Kittle, I'm playing Purdy. And Jennings, obviously, there's stackability there. I just worry with Debo out that he might not be as productive. And so you just keep going down the list. There's really not a good option, like at all, like a standout option. And so quarterback is my last priority, honestly, on the slate. So let's jump into some DSTs here. Are there any that I feel comfortable with playing? Well, I do think with Debo out, with CMC out, that the Rams are not going to go negative. They're the lowest priced defense that's not going to go negative. Thankfully speaking, the Cardinals have been that defense for us, and it's worked out. I think that's the Rams. Like, I'm happy to get there. Like, they'll probably give us 3 points, whatever. That's fine. Other defenses that are low price that we can get to, I do think Carolina, just naturally with a better offense, they're going to be a team that we're looking at. And then we really have to climb up to like the next best defense that we can be on. And so that's my thing. That's why I think I'm fine going with the Rams there, because again, trying to find the lowest price defense that's not going to go negative. So from there, what's the quarterback play that we're going to end up on? Unfortunately, it's probably going to be Carr, Purdy, or Stafford. But again, that's kind of my approach for this week. Now, this is all great. Let's see what the 9-to-5 lineup optimizer is spinning out to us as well. Now, I do want to call it that's early in the week. Projections are going to be constantly updating throughout the week, really until Friday. I would say these are rough draft projections. Obviously, you're not making any crazy decisions early on in the week, but I'm just going to round up on a couple of these projections. Need to give the data 2 projections to go off of. And shout out to Devonte Adams. I mentioned on the 9-to-5 members write-up that I thought he would be a good pivot off of the chalk Cooper Kupp, and that ended up working out with some builds. Unfortunately, I did not have that much of Alvin Kamara, thus nothing really even coming close to taking down a GPP. And whatever, for Justin Jefferson will round down to 14. I just want to generate this just to see what's spinning out as the current optimal lineup. I laugh, guys, because Bo Nix is in the optimal lineup. So this honestly tells me that the data agrees that the quarterback position is just such a wash that Bo Nix is someone that's popping up as a good play. I would argue Andy Dalton. I would rather play Andy Dalton than Bo Nix. That's actually interesting. The next quarterback is then Baker Mayfield. I feel a little bit better about that, but I do want to change the tight end stuff. Flex and eligible tight end. Always do that. If you guys are using the 9-to-5 lineup builder, always do that. And so a little bit better, actually giving us 2 receivers. So Rome Odunze popping up in there. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd rather go Winnington, but I get the Odunze. Jonathan Taylor. I don't really like Aaron Jones. It'll be interesting to see how much these change, but Valet is a good value play if he plays, guys. Played a bunch of snaps in week 1. They clearly like him. Probably going to be playing from behind. Yeah, interesting here. A lot of Aaron Jones, lots of Jonathan Taylor so far, which I find interesting. I like my lineup significantly more than what the lineup builder is currently spinning out. Again, projections, more of a rough draft on Tuesday afternoon. I don't think that's a shock to anyone. Once we get more information, once we get more confirmed information, practice reports, Vegas gives us more projections and everything. So very interesting there. Now, real quickly, guys, do want to call out the promo that's going on the 9-to-5 website. Use the promo code KEEPCASHING to get access to all the NFL DFS tools available for $10 a month. When you use the promo code KEEPCASHING, get it for 20% off. Get access to that lineup builder there, as well as some more NFL tools that I just released on the website. You guys get access to the NFL DFS cheat sheet, which includes just normal projections for the NFL DFS site, game lines, depth charts, potential stacks for the week. Which stacks should you be looking at? So right now, the best stack on the main slate, Baltimore potentially, then Arizona. Ownership leverage, too early for that. The thing I've been working on is actually this player props tab. But that's going to be all for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. As always, I appreciate it. Head on over to 95sports.com to get access to the tools. Appreciate you guys being here. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.